We all know that today is Srila Prabhupada Disappearance Day. But who is Srila Prabhupada? And why we are celebrating his Disappearance Day, that's important to understand. But before that, let me offer my obeisances. 𝗪𝗂𝗪𝗀𝗎 𝗪𝗀𝗎 चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी भाष्यादिशारिणे Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So today is a gentle reminder to all of us that Srila Prabhupada did many things, and he also wanted us to do many things. And it is a gentle reminder to all of us that that we should look in the past and today plan ahead for future. And it is a gentle reminder that we should see who Prabhupada was, take that inspiration and give it to others. And also, it's a gentle reminder that today is not just the day to think of Prabhupada. It is a day to think what Prabhupada thought. And that's the beauty of this day. Today is a day to plan and to get an insight what Prabhupada was thinking. So we like to think about Krishna, but Krishna says, think how I think. So Prabhupada said, if you can think how Krishna thinks, that's a perfection of life. And that's what this day is all for. What his thoughts were, what his actions were, and how can we fulfill his thoughts, his actions, his desires. So for that we should know who is he. If you ask me one word for him, for Srila Prabhupada, many devotees like to describe him in many ways, and all are correct. But if we read his biography, his life history, all his teachings, his books, his letters, his conversations, everything, there's just one word which comes to my mind. Who is he? He is a spiritual entrepreneur. That's what I would like to put it as. He was a spiritual businessman. And why? Because like a businessman, he could take all kind of risk. Like a businessman, he had a wide vision. Like a businessman, he could continue in times of difficulties. Like a businessman, he could find opportunity in times of failures. And like a businessman, he never stopped. He just continued. And that we see in Prabhupada's life. All great entrepreneurs, all great businessmen had this quality. Prabhupada went to America with 40 rupees. Alone, no contact. That's a big risk for a person who is 76, who is very old. And he had a wide vision. When others were planning to preach in India, his godbrothers, in Patna, in Allahabad, in South India, he was planning to preach in entire world. His vision, like Rockefeller, Ford. Prabhupada said in his one of his conversations, I think 1973 somewhere, Prabhupada, in lecture he said, like in your America, you have Rockefeller and Ford. I have become more rich than them. Prabhupada said that. So they changed the word, but Prabhupada, they changed the word for bad. But he changed the word for good. So he had this vision. He could continue in times of difficulties. So he got heart attacks. When he landed in America, after just an year or so, he almost got meningitis, brain problem. He had to go back to India. But he was very determined, and that his dream should come true. His dream was to establish Krishna consciousness in entire world. And in times of opportunity, in times of failure, he saw opportunity. That's actually a mark of a businessman. So ordinary people, when they fail, they get scared. But a good businessman, he finds an opportunity to double his business at the time of failure. And Prabhupada did that. When in Juhu, there was temple, and when he opened the temple, Indians were criticizing these foreigners. And there was a movie released by, who was that, Devanand Pandit? Hare Krishna, Hare Ram? Manoj Kumar, Devanand. Dam Maro Dam, Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, we all know as Indians. He released that, and people were really angry at Prabhupada and his disciples. And they surrounded Juhu temple and they were throwing stones. And these devotees, Prabhupada, big disciples, they went to Prabhupada and they were scared. They said, what happened? And papers were saying, these foreign devotees, they are, what, FBI or what is that? They are like that. So Prabhupada was very happy. When others saw that a movement is failing, Prabhupada saw it is actually going to become a success. Because he saw that a movement, he said, although they are criticizing us, but in the process we'll become famous. He saw that. He saw that, he had that vision. And of course that happened. We became very famous. ISKCON became very famous. Although it became famous in a negative connotation, but nevertheless Prabhupada saw that opportunity. And Prabhupada never stopped. Never stopped. When Prabhupada was successful in entire world, he came back to India in 1976, and of course last time, 77. And then he came and he was there, and devotees were telling Prabhupada, Prabhupada, now you have preached all around the world. Now you can take rest. Prabhupada said that this ant is not a devotee now. He saw ant. He said, it's not a devotee yet. And I have to preach. He was writing his purports at that time when he was old. It's very difficult. When you're young, you don't understand, but if you ask old people, or many old, Prabhu is there. When Prabhu was young, so energetic, but when body goes down, it's very difficult even to chant, even to get up in morning in Mangal Arati, it's not easy, which is very easy for young people. Prabhupada was so old, but he never stopped. He just continued. So that is Prabhupada. Prabhupada was a spiritual entrepreneur. And he was also a spiritual fighter. That's second adjective I would like to glorify Prabhupada as. He was a fighter. He was in fact a ruthless fighter. Let me put it like that. He was very ruthless, very fierce, and you can understand this by his books. In his books, he again and again said cats and dogs, rascal. You know this, no? Everybody knows this. Anybody who's read that book. When Indians read that book, they say, my God, this is a saint or some... In purport, Prabhupada says, the civilization is rascal, they are cats and dogs, they are complete nonsense, and this, that, and this is just shooting, that's all. And if you used to see Mayavadi, he was just out of control. One Mayavadi came in America to meet him. He was an Indian, a Bengali. Of course, mostly we are the Mayavadis. He came and he was saying, Prabhupada, according to me, Krishna, we are Krishna. Prabhupada was sitting. Immediately he stood up on the seat. He stood up on the seat. And he was sitting down and Prabhupada was looking down and he was saying, you are a demon. You say I am Krishna? You are complete nonsense. And he was just going after. That was Prabhupada. Prabhupada was really a ruthless fighter when it comes to preaching against Mayavadis, against scientists. Scientists, he used to say to scientists, many scientists, they used to come and meet him in LA, philosophers. Prabhupada used to say, you are destroying this country. He used to say them openly. When it comes to politicians, in Juhu, they arranged a big Pandal program. There were many politicians. We know they arranged a Pandal program in Juhu when Prabhupada came to India. There were thousands of people who came to see Prabhupada. There were politicians invited by Gopal Krishna Maharaj, Loknath Maharaj. And they were sitting in the front row. And then Prabhupada directly said, in front of everybody, these politicians, they're spoiling our country. And Prabhupada made one politician stand up and he was just after him, why you are spoiling this country? That was Prabhupada. He was a ruthless fighter. But on the other hand, he was not only a spiritual entrepreneur, a fighter, but also a perfect leader. That's very unique. Many people can do things, but they cannot make others do the same thing. That's very difficult. Many people are expert in their field, but they cannot make other people expert. Prabhupada has both these qualities. He was expert, and he could make others expert. He was a perfect leader. When his god brothers back in India, in 𝗙𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗃, when they were thinking to do their services in 𝗙𝗪𝗪𝗃, Prabhupada's god brother, Prabhupada was anxious to create services in the entire world. That means Prabhupada said, I hatched a plot in America. And what was that? Book distribution. Prabhupada said that. So Prabhupada was thinking how to create, that's a mark of a leader. A leader like Prabhupada, they just don't tell what to do, but they create an opportunity for the other person to do that thing and then tell this you have to do. That's a good leader. Not just do it. Okay, here's a plan and you should do like this and now go. Now go like that. So he was creating services for his devotees, book distribution, restaurants, and then Sankirtan parties, and people were encashing that. And when Prabhupada's god brothers were guiding other devotees back in India, Prabhupada in America was preparing his disciples by his books so that they can guide themselves by the sword of knowledge. Prabhupada gave him his books. Prabhupada not only guided them, but also gave them the knowledge by which they can guide themselves. That's a good leader. A bad leader is, he'll simply like to guide people, but he will never tell them the secret, how to become leader themselves. He'll never tell. But Prabhupada was not like that. Prabhupada said, a father becomes happy when his son grows more than his father. He said, and Prabhupada was that. Prabhupada said to one Mataji, that for serving Krishna, you can stand on my head. That's it in Leela Amrit. That was Prabhupada. And when Prabhupada, Prabhupada's other god brothers, they were simply reading books of Bhakti Siddhanta. They were reading books back in India. But Srila Prabhupada, he not only read those books, but he understood them and he personified them. That's a good leader. To show by his actions. In fact, Prabhupada told in Calcutta, Prabhupada told, my Guru Maharaj wrote books only for me. That's funny. Only for me, he said. And that was quite a big statement. He said like that. And because he actually could understand and he could follow it, word to word. That was Prabhupada. He was in fact showing us how we have to be committed to his books. His books are there, which most of us are not reading. That's gone down in ISKCON. But we should read his books. And Prabhupada, most of the devotees, when they were trying to purify themselves, Prabhupada was keeping his purity to purify others. He doesn't have to keep his purity, he's perfect. But he was teaching us that we should not try to become pure to become pure. That's not a leader. A leader becomes pure to give others that purity. He tries to keep himself up so that he can help others. That was Srila Prabhupada. That's why Prabhupada was finishing his rounds. He didn't need to finish his rounds. But he was doing that. Prabhupada was in Mayapur, and that devotee, I don't know, Hamsadhur Prabhu or Gargmuni, he came inside the room. Prabhupada was chanting, and then he came, and then Prabhupada lifted his feet back. And that counter, so that was the last round. Prabhupada finished that. Prabhupada said, now my rounds are finished, and I can do any damn thing now. I'm free. Prabhupada said that. So, he didn't need to chant, but he was showing us that in spite of the word, in spite of he's leader of all the world, He's opened so many temples, so many books, so written. But nevertheless, he finishes his rounds. And he was setting an example as a perfect leader who not only just leads, but teaches others how to lead. Who not only just leads by demand, but leads by command. That is Srila Prabhupada. And of course, Srila Prabhupada was a tiger outside the temple. But at the same time also, he was lamb inside the temple. And that's what Prabhupada told us. Be tiger outside, but a lamb inside the temple. And Prabhupada, this one aspect of Prabhupada, strong, fighter, spiritual entrepreneur, ruthless. But there's another aspect within the community of devotee. He was like a sword. And the funny thing about sword is, sword has a cutting edge, and then there is a thing to hold. So Prabhupada was both. He could cut people who opposed Krishna, and people could hold him who loved Krishna. So both hands. He had that both hands. He was, we all know Prabhupada in the letter, always he writes, your eternal well-wisher. Prabhupada writes that. So Prabhupada was like, whenever anybody did mistake, Prabhupada as if closed his eyes. And when anybody did some service, Prabhupada as if he opened his eyes like Jagannath. That was Prabhupada. He was having a gentle side, soft side, encouraging side to his devotees. Anywhere he used to see a small spark of service, he used to fan it. Forget everything. Forget all kind of nonsense you have done. Prabhupada never asked about that. There are many incidences, many devotees did complete crazy things. And then they used to come, Prabhupada, we did all these things. People used to complain. Prabhupada said, no problem. How many books you have distributed? What you have done for Krishna? He says, we have done this. Prabhupada says, I'm very happy. That was Prabhupada. He used to encourage his devotees. But if Prabhupada was spiritual entrepreneur, he was a fighter, he was perfect leader, a lamb, he was also very practical. That is very unique of Prabhupada. Some people are leaders and they can envision, but they're not practical. Many spiritual entrepreneurs, they have to hire a manager to manage, because people lack qualities, no? But Prabhupada was everything in one. He could manage, he could lead, he could guide, he could fight, and that makes him the Acharya of this world. And that's why we know he was, what was that? He was a spiritual commander of that. 𝗍𝗪𝗔, spiritual commander. Krishna sent him personally. Only he could do it. People like us, come on. People like me anyway, forget it. But only he could do it, and only he could do it, that's all. So he was very practical. There was one devotee who showed LA, the BBT. So devotees were showing him all this BBT thing. I think in New York or LA, somewhere. So they were showing Prabhupada, so nice, so many books were kept. It was a big storeroom. And then Prabhupada was seeing. Prabhupada immediately asked, where are fire extinguishers? Nobody expected Prabhupada was going to ask. It was very practical, very down to earth. Okay, this is nice, but where are fire extinguishers? When Prabhupada was going in Vrindavan with all his foreign disciples, some of them in car, so they were expecting, like Prabhupada will speak about Krishna's fasting. Of course, Prabhupada used to speak about Krishna's fasting, that's nice. But then when they were entering, Prabhupada said, where is cement? And devotees were surprised, what's happening to Prabhupada? We were thinking Prabhupada would say, where is Govardhan, where is Krishna? Prabhupada says, where is cement? Because Prabhupada could see that government is not allowing cement. It's becoming costly. And they were building a temple. So he was very practical, and he gave all his life to strengthen our foundation of devotional service by stressing on basic rules and regulations. That's what his books are all about. You might not find in Prabhupada books esoteric topics of Radha Krishna pastimes, even in 10th canto. But that is a statement made by a fool. It is there. It is there because Prabhupada is giving the key to unlock those pastimes. You can read all those books, but you'll not be able to unlock. Because Prabhupada is stressing on basic, practical. Prabhupada is a practical counselor, let me say. Prabhupada always said, okay, get up in the morning. No? Even in 10th canto commentary, even in last days, he is saying, get up in the morning, remain clean. We have seen videos, no? And when I saw first that video, like when I was very new, I used to think, why Prabhupada is saying, remain clean, get up in the morning, chant 16 rounds. I used to think what Prabhupada is, he doesn't have anything else to say. Sorry to say, I thought like that. When I just first read that, and in 10th canto commentary, and then I read 10th canto commentary of Acharyas in Sanskrit, and it was very deep. But after so many years of devotion now, like everybody who has spent at least 25 years in devotion after so many years, now we understand that if anything is going to save us by falling into illusion, is getting up early in the morning. Nothing else will save us. Rest aside, everything is good. But if you don't get up in the morning, if you don't chant 16 rounds, if you don't follow 4 regulatory principles, we are gone. We are gone. Absolutely, we are gone. Prabhupada, that is Acharya. Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Thakur always emphasized on holy name. Basic. Bhaktisiddhanta always emphasized on service. And Prabhupada always emphasized on following rules and regulations, so that we get strength to chant holy name and do that service. That's Prabhupada's practical counseling. Prabhupada gave all his life not just to tell us what to do, but also to warn us, if you don't do this, what's going to happen. And by the way, in 1973, January 3rd, there's a room conversation, and Prabhupada said in that, Prabhupada said, see, I am saying to my disciples, follow 4 regulatory principles, no gambling, no illicit sex, no meat eating, no intoxication, and chant nicely. But if they do not do this, they do not follow my instructions, they'll fall down. Prabhupada said, okay, Bali Mardan, he fell down, Sudama fell down, so many examples he gave. Prabhupada said, but what can I do? If I tell them, don't keep a knife at your throat, and if they keep, their throat will get cut, slit open. So Prabhupada says it is not enough to chant his glories, it is also important to follow his instructions. Prabhupada also said, that might be very shocking statement, but one of his conversations, Prabhupada said, even big sannyasis, they can fall down if they don't follow my instructions. That was his practical counseling. And Prabhupada gave all his life to give us his plans, his practical plans. He always said, in India, he said to one of the devotee, so India, there were elections going on. Prabhupada called the devotee, and Prabhupada said, put banners. And on those banners, you write, any politician who is doing intoxication, illicit sex, gambling, and meat eating, don't vote. Prabhupada said that. So I think he said to 𝗙𝗪𝗓 Prabhu, he was there in Delhi at that time. Of course, they didn't do it. It was but Prabhupada said, if you are able to do it, do it. That was Prabhupada's practical counseling. So in Juhu, there was one devotee who was about to meet the Prime Minister. At that time, there was a meeting, or Prabhupada's meeting with Prime Minister, but somehow it couldn't happen. Prabhupada said, okay, you go and meet, and I'll tell you what to tell him. And he told all the points. You should discuss with him this. Is to personally counsel, is to personally give plans. And then he used to say, fill in the details yourself. I'll give you the framework. Now you put your energy to fill in the details. That is Srila Prabhupada. That's why he's a practical counselor. So if you ask who is Prabhupada, he's a spiritual entrepreneur. He's a ruthless fighter. He's a perfect leader. He is gentle and well-wisher of his devotees. And he is a practical counselor. And this day is to remember what Prabhupada did and also re-examine what we are doing for him. That's this day all about. That's what we should be doing here. It is not enough to think about Prabhupada. It is important to think what we should do now for him and what we have been doing for him. He has given so much to us. How can we repay him? What should we do back for him? This is a day. And if you have doubts that Prabhupada, we are not Prabhupada. Prabhupada is Prabhupada and we are we. How can we do what Prabhupada says or what Prabhupada did? It's a big thing. Then don't remember, Prabhupada said many times, do as I'm doing. Back in 1972, and at the end of the ISKCON history of the movement, he said, do as I am doing. And we should try to do that. So today we can pray to Radha Madan Mohan that they inspire us so that whatever life is left for us, whatever breaths are left to us, we can fulfill that order of Prabhupada, do as I am doing. Hare Krishna, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. It's a nice day.